Coming up on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show today,
we're going to talk about drying and storing herbs and preserving herbs.
As well as preserving in the refrigerator so you don't have to water bath or pressure can your harvest.
And we're also going to talk with Joe Lamp'l. He is the host of Growing a Greener World, and an author and a blogger.
As well as your garden questions. That all starts right now.
Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show on 860 AM WNOV and W293CX 106.5. You might also be listening to it through the TuneIn app, the Simple Radio app, possibly through the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com website or other places that we're not aware of. I am your host, Joy Baird. Beside me is my wife, co-host, best friend, and gardening partner,
Holly Baird.
The WisconsinVegetableGardener.com is our website containing over 1,200 plus garden videos, short and long format, as well as full podcast of every show that we've done here, as well as in-studio videos. Segments of each show is available on the highlight tab on the right-hand side of the main page. There's a few ways in which you can contact us right now. One is through the IV Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard hotline.
That's correct. That hotline is 414-444-5250. IV Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard naturally protects plants against damaging sunburn, insects, and rodents, protects newly installed plants and trees, shields pruned and damaged surfaces. For use on your roses, fruit and nut trees, ornamental trees, and shrubs, this product is non-toxic, environmentally safe, and organic. You can visit ivorganics.com. Again, that's 414-444-5250.
And you can also email us at any time post-show or during the show at TWVG Show. Our Twitter handle is TWVG Show. So email twvgshow at gmail.com or Twitter TWVG Show. Well, we're going to get into the program, and what we are going to talk about is preserving your herbs. And whenever we talk about this, people like to go to the grocery store and buy the 1 or 2 ounce or half ounce sprigs of fresh rosemary and basil and thyme and cilantro, which cilantro is one of the cheaper investments there in the herb category. But if we're growing these at home and or we can get them for a much more affordable price at the farmer's market in a bundle or in a group, or if we have a friend who has a shrubbery of herbs, which doesn't take much to create, we can preserve these herbs, dry them, preserve them, so we have them all winter long. Because, yeah, fresh out of the garden is great, but if you preserve them right, the freshness is almost, or the stored properties is almost just as good as if you walked out in December and, if the conditions are right, pick some basil, fresh basil off the plant or buy it at the grocery store.
Definitely. So the first one is
first let's talk about when we decide to harvest something and bring it in to preserve it. We want to make sure that it's disease-free, there's no blemishes on it, or no problems, as well as there's no insects that you're going to preserve in the preserving process. We want to make sure we get a healthy plant, and we're cleaning it before the proper procedure is performed on it.
Right. So the first one is alcohol extraction. Now, it's if you don't drink, it's okay. You can use this for cooking. If you do drink, you might find this beneficial, like making yourself like a minty liqueur type thing, and that would be good for cocktails as well. So basically, you're soaking the herbs in the liqueur, and there's lots of recipes online, and then you're straining it at some point. So what happens is all of the properties of those herbs, the flavors, the oils, whatnot, gets absorbed by that liquor, and then you're
we're not preserving, we're not holding on to the item of herb. We're holding on to the liquid that the herb has been extracted into.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we just store it in a normal.
Yeah, just like you store your regular.
Normal liquor. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, and the most popular one, or most familiar one, I would assume, is drying your herbs on a dehydrator and or rack. We use Nesco. They're a sponsor of our Garden Talks.
You can dehydrate them, or you can just dry them naturally. But if you do that, you have to commit a little more time and space, and make sure if you have any pets or small children or what have you aren't going to move the herbs around. They have to have that space to dry.
And a clean area, because these herbs, if you do it in a dehydrator, can take 8 to 12, maybe 15 hours based on the herb. If you just lay them out on a cooling rack in the corner of the room, it can take 1-2 weeks based on the environmental conditions of your residence. But what happens in normal everyday households, there's a lot of dust that can acquire on these items. So you need to figure out some way to prevent the dust from accumulating on your items in which you're drying, so you don't have dried herbs with a lot of dust on them. So we want to keep that in mind too. It's just a reality of life.
Right. And then once they're dry, you can grind them, you can leave them kind of whole, whatever you choose to do, but just as long as you store them in an airtight container.
And we've done both. We've dried them whole, as well as we've ground them up to like ground rosemary.
Right.
So there you go. As well as sage, we leave whole for other applications.
So you can freeze them with oil. A lot of people do this. They'll take their herbs, they'll chop them up, they'll mix them with oil, pour them into ice cube trays or things of that sort.
Pinterest is loaded with images like this.
Yeah. And then you freeze it, and then you can leave it in the ice cube tray, or you can pop them out and then put them in like a Ziploc bag or something like that. But that way, when you're cooking, you can just toss that herb cube, I guess, into whatever you're cooking. It gives it some nice flavor. A lot of people do this with pesto. Pesto is expensive, and you can grow basil very prolifically, so you can definitely do that with pesto. The best herbs for freezing include rosemary, thyme, oregano, parsley, cilantro, dill, mint, and basil. So pretty common herbs. Those are, I would say, the most common herbs that are grown, and they're easy to freeze.
And if you don't have enough time, you can always freeze and chop and freeze your herbs there. And this is a process that's probably next to the dehydrating. This is probably one of the second quickest ones to prepare freezing the herbs.
Right. So then there's freezing the herbs, where basically it's kind of like dehydrating. In a sense, you're going to put them on a flat tray, like a cookie sheet.
Okay, so we're not like bagging them up and throw them in the freezer.
No.
Okay,
so you have to. It's called flash freezing typically. So you have. It's like a two-step process. So you put them on a cookie sheet, place them in the freezer. Yep.
Okay.
When they're frozen, then you would put them into a zip top bag. Chives are definitely one that people do a lot with, or even rosemary, and then. Yeah, you're cutting down on prep time later if you freeze them chopped.
So we want to clean them first and then dry them off, so when we put them in the freezer, they're not having a film of water that's locking up.
Right, just kind of pat them dry,
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about salting our herbs. This is something that probably a lot of people aren't familiar with in the procedure of prepping for the storage of herbs.
Yeah, so what you can do is you can layer them in salt. So you do like a thin layer of salt, a layer of herbs.
Our grandparents may have done this years ago and just never got passed down.
And so there's two things that occur here. One is that will preserve the flavor of the herb, but it'll also flavor the salt. So it's like win-win. So you get the...
Two things for the price of one.
It's a twofer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the dehydrating properties. When we talked about dehydrating, it actually intensifies the flavor because you're removing the water from the item, but leaving the oils, which is where the flavor is kept, and that way you can use less and still get the flavor you're looking for, and actually extend the harvest essentially, because you're not having to use as many because the flavor is more intense because the moisture has been removed, but the oils with the properties and the flavors have stayed in that particular item.
Right.
Let's talk about a couple more here. Vinegar. This is something we see a lot of pictures.
We do this with. I don't remember, was it garlic? Or
strawberries.
Strawberries.
We did this with strawberries,
yeah. But either way, what you do is kind of like the liquor.
You're infusing.
You're infusing
Okay.
it, yep. And they typically recommend something like a raw apple cider vinegar, the one with the mother in it. And you stuff herbs into bottles, pour the vinegar in them, and then you want to use non-metal closures.
Well, what number one, raw cider vinegar. This is not the El Cheapo stuff you bought on sale. Explain what a raw cider vinegar is for people who are unfamiliar with that term.
Sure. So raw cider vinegar is vinegar that's made by natural fermentation. So it has some good probiotic properties.
You can do this at your home too.
We do this ourselves. But if you're looking at the shelf, you don't buy the vinegar that's in the plastic bottle. You buy it in the glass bottle, and it'll say raw vinegar. There's one well-known brand. And if you look at it, you'll see some sediment on the bottom. That's the mother.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And another popular one, herb butter.
Yeah, so this is fun.
A lot of really nice restaurants have this available.
What's his name from the Food Channel? The food science guy, Alton Brown. Okay. He does a really good segment. Alton Brown. Yeah. You could Google this. He does a really good segment on making herb butter, and he shows how to preserve it and whatnot. And it's really cool. It'll store for months in the freezer.
And there's no wrong herb you can put in butter. If you like the herb and you do it according to the instructions, you can put whatever basil, rosemary, thyme, whatever you want in it.
We did this. We actually made our own, or we did mayonnaise. We made our own mayonnaise, added herbs, and then I remember we made BLTs and like a few other sandwiches with it, and it was amazing.
We infused the herbs in the mayonnaise and did it that way. And essentially all it is chopped up particles of the herb mixed amongst the main item, which is the mayonnaise or the butter.
Right.
So you get a little bit of everything. And herbed oil.
So this is the same concept of the herbed frozen oils, but you're leaving it on the shelf.
Shelf stable?
Shelf stable.
Okay.
You'll see these at like fancy grocery stores already where you can buy them. You can do this yourself. Buy the oil, get the herbs, do it yourself. And
save money on the end.
Save money. You can add garlic, lots of stuff. If you use Pinterest, you can find all sorts of ideas for these herbs.
Warning about Pinterest, just because the image looks cute doesn't always mean the story behind the image is true. There's some fictitious imagery just to get clicks and likes and saves. So just be aware of what you're looking at. If it seems too good to be true, it's probably just for the clickbait aspect of the program or the website.
For sure, yeah. And you can, a lot of the stuff people are, do I have an investment here? What do I need? A lot of the stuff you already have. You may not have a dehydrator, but maybe you're like, this is something I want to pursue. You can definitely invest in one. We found them at rummage sales.
Oh, that's the best place to go.
Yeah.
You can buy 2 or 3 and put them all together and get the same brand and get multiple tray elevation.
And, even though it's, people are it's Labor Day weekend, so people might be cleaning out their garage and decide to have a rummage sale next week. So don't forget about rummage sales. Otherwise, you can always, find deals online. Already stuff you have would be like cookie sheets, zip top bags are pretty cheap to buy, like all sorts of oils you can find at the store. So it's not a huge investment. And if you do go to one of those specialty stores and see this stuff that's like already done for you, you can make it for yourself at a very much low cost.
Right. A couple of things. Don't get ahead of yourself. Do within your capabilities. Don't take on more than what you can handle. And for goodness sake, don't forget to label. If you do something specific, label it so you know what it is. Just like we've always, and we've done it, just like you've done it. We put stuff in a bag, threw it in the freezer. I'll remember this is that leftover, and you have no idea what
I did that the other day. I thought we had frozen chicken, and it was frozen pork chops. So, good times.
Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about refrigerator items, and that's going to be preserving your harvest in the refrigerator. Some people don't want to use a canner or a pressure canner or water bag. We can do it in the refrigerator, and we're going to go over that right after this.
.24/7, 365. The WisconsinVegetableGardener.com has all the gardening information you need, videos, digital magazines, replays of shows, and more.
Pomona's Universal Pectin is high-quality pectin that gels reliably with low amounts of any sweetener. If you're trying to reduce the amount of sugar in your diet, you'll love Pomona's Universal Pectin. Now you can make healthy homemade jams and jellies sweetened to your taste. You can use sugar, honey, or any alternative sweetener you'd like. Pomona's Universal Pectin keeps indefinitely when stored in an airtight container. Easy to use, versatile, and comes with directions and recipes in every box. Find out more and where to buy at PomonaPectin.com. Available at most natural food stores and online.
The number one key to healthy, productive plants are the roots. Starting from seed to full-grown plants, rootmaker.com has the answer. From seed starting trays with an innovative design that air prunes the roots, creating a fabulous root system, never again will you have root-bound plants, to multiple gallon grow bag sizes to raised beds. Rootmaker.com has your grow needs covered. Visit rootmaker.com. Do you have a problem with deer or small herbivores eating your vegetation? There is a natural solution that is safe for your pets and family. Bobex is the answer. An environmentally friendly solution to protect your plants, will not wash off, and is guaranteed. Bobex Deer was independently tested against 9 known competitors and rated 93% effective, second only to a physical barrier. Bobex can be used on all types of ornamentals, trees, and shrubs. Ask for it by name at your local independent garden center. Find out more, visit bobex.com. BOBBEX.com. Purple Cow Organics quickly and naturally increases the uptake of nutrients and water to your plants with their new bioactive vegetable supercharger designed to meet the unique needs by helping the living organisms in the soil help plants uptake the nutrients more quickly through their roots and leaves. Find out more at purplecoworganics.com. Flame Engineering, home of the Weed Dragon, the perfect propane torch kit for home and garden use. For killing weeds, no need to pull or spray. 100 other uses. Find out more at flameengineering.com. How many pounds of potatoes do you eat a year? This garden fun fact is sponsored by ManureTea.com. Get your 3-pack today. Drop the tea bag in water, let steep, then feed your soil, not your plants. 100% organic. Find out more at ManureTea.com. Always free shipping. The potato originated in the region of southern Peru, where it was first domesticated between 2000 and 3000 BC. The average American eats 140 pounds of potatoes per year, and potatoes have also been used to brew alcoholic beverages such as vodka. The Gardener's Hollow Leg, the debris and harvesting bag you wear, comes with its own belt attachment, perfect for doing light pruning, weeding, harvesting on the ground or on a ladder, and many other uses. Find out more at thegardenershollowleg.com. Save 10% by using the word veggies at checkout.
Blue Mel's Garden and Landscape Center offers an awesome selection of high-quality garden and landscape products. We have just the plants you're looking for: annuals, perennials, veggies, herbs, and more. Plus, you can always count on us to answer all of your questions and offer expert advice. Blue Mel's also carries the largest selection of bulk landscape materials in the area. Enjoy a beverage from our coffee shop while your kids run around in our huge playground. Join our growing list of highly satisfied customers. Visit the garden center that offers everything you're looking for. Visit Blue Mel's today.
Blue Mel's, 4930 West Loomis Road, 414-282-4220. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show is brought to you by the following: Haas Tools, Tree Diaper, Root Maker, Seeding Square, Rebel Green, Dripping Springs Oyas, Zaz Products, Shield and Seal, Pomona Universal Pectin. Find all sponsors at thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com and thank them for their support.
Now back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden Radio Show with your host, Joe Lamp'l.
Well, there's a lot of ways in order to preserve your harvest, whether that be water bath canning or pressure canning, freezing, whatever the case is, especially even if you don't garden at all. You go to the farmer's market, been to a couple of them myself this week, there is a tremendous amount of produce for a very, I got like 5 pounds of eggplants for $1. They had an eggplant the size of a baby's head for
I got it's ginormous. You get 3 huge eggplants. I get home, look at these eggplants I got, 3 for $1. I would pay $1 for one of them.
Yeah.
They're ginormous.
But here's the thing: we can buy a lot of this produce for very little. Small. You take $20 to a farmer's market and you only buy produce, you're going to get a lot of produce. Well, what if you don't have the place and ability to, or you want to can based on pressure canning or water bath canning? We can preserve in the fridge and or the freezer with basic cooking knowledge. So what do we have? What are our options, or what is refrigerating preserving?
Sure. So refrigerating preserving is prolonging the life of your harvest by using your refrigerator. Essentially, that's what it is.
It doesn't provide you a longevity as a shelf-stable can of pasta sauce or tomato sauce that you would preserve in a water bath canner, correct?
Right. It's gonna give you
an extension,
maybe like a month to 2 months more, depending on what you're preserving.
Okay.
But it's not going to give you like a year.
Okay.
Typically not.
So we're looking 1 to 3 months on the majority of what we're making, but that allows us to enjoy it much longer. Now, if we do freezer, we're going to get more of an extended life on it than
so we're going to talk mostly about the fridge here.
Okay.
So the first thing is that rule of thumb is that whatever you do, you want to think about how you're storing it. So if you are storing something like carrots, you can store them in a zip top bag. If you're storing, like, say you make a bunch of pasta sauce and you're like, I'm going to eat this within the next 3 weeks, or use it for food prep or whatever. Like sometimes people will do like freezer meals and make lasagna or whatnot. You can do that, but you want to make sure that it's airtight. But then some things like garlic scapes, we keep those in a paper bag.
Never plastic.
No,
never
not
plastic in the fridge.
So you kind of have to, you can do some research, look into it further, but consider that. So you have to consider how you're storing it. There's also things like fridge jam, fridge pickles, things like that, where it's a refrigerator preserved item, but it's going to, like refrigerator pickles will probably last you up to 6 months.
Okay.
But fridge jam, same thing. If you don't eat it, it's it's pretty good. And then
Carrots kept in the crisper in a bag. You can get literally a year out of them.
Yeah.
Potatoes, you can keep those underneath the cabinet, keep them out of sunlight.
that's one thing I wanted to say is
Yeah.
that root crops are ideal. So anything from carrots to radishes to turnips to beets, but you want to leave the dirt on them. But the potatoes you do not want to put in the fridge.
Right. Or tomatoes, for that matter, the whole tomatoes. When we're talking about radishes and all that, we want to put them, again, in an airtight container. Otherwise, they're going to dry out because the fridge pulls moisture. Things like garlic scapes, you can put them in a paper bag, and they don't dry out nearly because the density of the item is much, much thicker.
Right.
Okay, so when we prepare our jams or our pickles, it's just as if we were going to do it in a water bath method.
I've seen people do them.
Or do we just actually do it in the jar, all the ingredients, lit it up, and put it in the fridge?
You can do it in the jar,
Okay.
or you can do it like you're going to can them. Either way, I've seen people put them in like those plastic, fake Tupperware things.
Okay.
So I wouldn't do that personally. I'd probably put in glass.
You prefer glass?
Yeah, but whatever works for you. People like them because there's a lot of like knockoff. There's refrigerator pickles in the grocery store that are in the refrigerator section. They find a lot of knockoff recipes for those.
Okay, whenever we're doing this, is it required that we use a certified mason jar? Or can we use any type of glass jar? An old pickle jar that we had, an old glass mayonnaise jar.
For fridge storage, you can use an old glass jar.
Sanitize it, use it. It's
Right.
not. It's totally safe. It's just when you're using the mason jars and going through the actual procedure of pressure canning and water bath, that's when you have to use the design jar for that method of preserving.
Okay, and I know a lot of people that, like I said, that if they do the fridge storage, they're usually storing it until they can do some sort of food prep. So maybe they're going to make a huge stew and they're storing their carrots and whatnot until they get to that point. So, and then they're going to freeze those portions of the stew. So it's something to think about, like this is going to help you prolong till you get to that point. Otherwise, like we store cabbage in the fridge for, what was that, at least 4 months?
4 months. Now, the
Now, if you
cabbage
have
doesn't look good
it doesn't-
until you peel back 3 layers, and it's just like you pulled it out of the garden.
You might lose some layers on the top. If you start to smell something funky in your fridge, you probably want to make sure it's not one of your cabbage heads or wayward carrots or something like that.
So when we're doing refrigerator pickles, this is totally opposite of doing the pickles like some of our listeners may remember grandparents doing it in the crock. This is a totally different procedure.
This is like, it's kind of a hybrid of just...
The crock stays out. These go in.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So you're going to do like a canning almost process, but now you don't need a canner. You get the vinegar hot and then the spices and dill or whatnot, garlic, and then make the brine, and then you have your pickles. And a lot of people like them because they stay crisper than
Because you're not
canned.
putting the heat to them.
Right.
That's the problem a lot of people have. Why is my pickle soft and limp? It's one, if you're doing it in a quart jar, you've got more heat that is experienced to it because of a longer processing time. If you do it in pint jars, the heat is less because it's a smaller, shorter processing time. But you still have, they don't necessarily have that pop like the store-bought pickles do, and I'm sure the store-bought pickles have additives in which allows it to have that pop in some instances that may not be as good for
I
us.
honestly think that they take like not completely ripe cucumbers.
Okay, so
and then they,
To
I don't know,
okay.
I don't know, but it just, it's definitely, and maybe they, who knows what their process is, but these are some great items that you can store in your fridge for long term. Again, you don't want to put potatoes in there. I don't remember why, something about the sugars or something, garlic either. So it's like you kind of have to do some research as to which root crops, but the biggest thing we've learned is leaving that dirt on there kind of creates like a barrier against the spoilage.
Yeah, when you harvest your crops, never clean the dirt off unless you're absolutely going to prepare it because of that protection on
Now,
it.
what about summer squash? I know sometimes you can let that store.
Summer squash, if you pull a normal summer squash, we're talking zucchini, that's about 6-8 inches long, inch across in diameter. You leave that on the table, about a week and a half, that thing has started to shrivel. You've lost the goodness out of it. What we have found, and this is purely by accident, is that when we allow our zucchini, we allow several of them just to grow unbelievably large. We're talking 18, 20 inches long and 8 or 9 inches in diameter, a massive piece of it. The ones you see that are people are like, oh, I let this one go too long. We will actually take that and put it in our storage room. And it actually mimics a winter squash. We can let that sit in there, and we harvest it in the summer. So let's say now, September or early October. We used up our last zucchini in March this past year because it was so large, it kind of preserved itself. It didn't have there was so much mass there, it wasn't able to dry out like a small summer squash that you would normally see.
I think it's because it was so large.
And we got so many comments on that. How did you keep your summer squash, through?
It was a little tough.
Oh, it wasn't just like fresh out of the garden.
No.
But we peeled it, we seeded it, we sautéed it, we buttered it, softened it up. And zucchini is one of those unique vegetables in which you can infuse flavor into it. And it's kind of like tofu of the garden world.
Yeah, it kind of is.
You can infuse the flavor. It wasn't on a drier state, but we were able to make it last.
Yeah, you add butter or anything, it tastes good.
Yeah, so we were able to make it last there. So that's one way to do that. Now, real quickly, freezer jam. What's the difference between freezer jam and refrigerator jam?
Not much. It's just freezer jam will last you longer, and then fridge jam will...
So whenever we make freezer jam, we put it in the freezer to preserve it. When we're ready to use it, we pull it out, let it soften up, and then we put it in the fridge.
Right.
Just like we would a normal opened can of water bath jam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
a lot of people think that the fridge jam tastes a lot fresher because it hasn't been... not that you don't really can jam for that long, but they feel like it does taste more fresh.
Because the heat process hasn't disrupted some of the elements of the item.
And I don't think you cook it as long either because you don't really add a lot of liquid or anything to it. You just kind of mash it, add the sugar.
Heat it up to get everything dissolved, bound together, and put it in the jar and let it cool before you put it in the fridge.
Yep, you would want to let it cool.
Just like we normally would. Okay. Well, when we come back, our good friend Joe Lamp'l, he is host of PBS's Growing a Greener World. He will be with us to enlighten us on some of his gardening techniques that can help us here in the fall months of gardening right after this.
Got a question? Email the show at twvgshow@gmail.com.
An Oya is an unglazed porous clay pot with a short neck and a wider belly. Bury your Oya neck deep in your raised bed, container, or ground garden and let the Oya do your watering by releasing water as needed. How? By soil moisture retention for all you techies out there. This is an eco-friendly, efficient, ancient way to water your plants using up to 70% less water than other irrigation methods. It saves you time and is easy to install. Find a retailer through DrippingSpringsOyas.com. Smart watering, easy gardening. Mycorrhizae is a beneficial fungus from PlantSuccessOrganics.com that will greatly increase your plant's germination ability and healthier root structure. You can increase seed sprouting, root growth, and general plant germination. Mycorrhizae can be used with hydroponic root cutting, seed sprouting, cocoa coir, and soil. PlantSuccessOrganics.com carries powder, granule, and tablet form of mycorrhizae. Increase the level of mycorrhizae in your soil to give your plant the optimal opportunity to produce incredible harvests. For more information and to purchase, visit PlantSuccessOrganics.com. Woodman's is a Wisconsin-based family-owned company founded in 1919. They offer low prices in every single aisle every day. No need to carry a discount card. From produce to meat to international to natural and organic, all offered at the lowest possible prices. Over 60,000 products at every store. Service and savings every day. They're employee-owned to help you save money. They also offer online shopping for pickup and delivery, working to save you more money. Visit woodmans-food.com to find the nearest location.
Zaz Products, offering great quality supplements that can help personal health and increase longevity. Committed to bringing you the highest quality products at the lowest price. Find out more at zazproducts.com. Tall Earth Wood Treatment All-in-One Preservative and Stain offers lifetime protection and creates a unique silver-aged wood finish. All ingredients are non-toxic, eco-friendly, perfect for garden beds and veg trucks. Find out more at tallearth.com. Free shipping on all orders. Use coupon code WISCONVEG to save 15% off orders placed at tallearth.com. Shield and Seal Vacuum Sealers and the highest quality vacuum sealing products, unique black and clear and all black bags, protecting your produce and product better than traditional bags. Find out more at shieldandseal.com.
The Handy Safety Knife is a patented, high-quality knife that's worn like a ring, so it's always conveniently at hand and very easy and efficient to work with. That's why you'll find the Handy Safety Knife at work in a wide range of industries and applications. Learn more at handysafetyknife.com. Place an order for your business. Call toll-free 866-294-3424.
Use coupon code WVG to get 10% off and free shipping one-time use only at handysafetyknife.com. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show is brought to you by the following: Flame Engineering, Eagle Garden Systems, Bobex, Plant Success, Beans and Barley, Am I Gardener, Outpost Natural Food Co-op, Root Assassin, Manure Tea, The Gardener's Hollow Leg. Find all sponsors at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com and thank them for their support.
Now back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden Radio Show
We talk gardening. That's all we do. That's what this is all about.
with your hosts, Joey and Holly Baird.
Well, if you were not with us or at Blue Mills the last 2 weeks, they had their summer market, so you've missed out on that. But hey, it's not too late to, they've got 40 varieties of bulk material at Blue Mills Landscape and Garden Center. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to go buy rock or gravel or sand or compost or wood chips, you want to buy it in the bulk variety. You can do this in a car. You can go, I've done this with a friend. We went and took her car and we filled up 5-gallon buckets and took and did what we needed to do. It's much more affordable than buying it by the bag, okay? So you want to figure out, now's the time to do it. You want to check listings because of the holiday, when they're open and when they're not. But you want to fill in some holes in the driveway. You want to do some mulching. They have the material. And if you're uncertain of what material you need for the job in which you're doing, then they have a staff there that is knowledgeable, that knows what they're doing, and can give you advice, because sometimes people will go to a garden center and say, hey, I want this for this and this. And the staff says, absolutely, where's your truck at? Let's load it up. Knowing, or maybe unknowing because of the lack of education on the staff member, that it's not going to be good. The customer is going to be upset, and they're not going to come back.
I just want to say that we've been with them for a while, or they've been sponsoring us for, I don't know what, a couple of years now. And they have the same staff that is there all the time.
It's not a turnover.
No, it's not like, oh, this, George was there last year and now here's Jane. No, like they're the same people year after year.
When you have good people, you don't let good people go. And where can we find Blue Mills Landscape and Garden Center?
It's at 4930 West Loomis Road in Greenfield, 414-282-4220, or bluemills.com.
Well, Holly, let's go to the Ivy Organics, the Room 1 Plant Guard hotline, and bring in our next guest.
Joe Lamp'l is one of the country's most recognized and trusted personalities in gardening and green living, and his passion for living a greener life is evident to his nationwide audience on Growing a Greener World on PBS. He's also an author, blogger, and more. Welcome to the program, Joe.
Hi, Holly. Good morning. Hey, Joey.
Hello. Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join us on the program and share some of your wisdom with Holly, myself, and all of our listeners.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, Joe, for people who's tuned in to PBS's Growing a Greener World, they've seen you've got a lot of raised beds, and you're very successful with those raised beds. Why did you choose to go to raised beds versus just taking the tiller out in the back yard there and digging up a spot of ground?
Well, I really love the idea of engineering my soil to create the ideal growing environment. And although the soil that we have that's native to Georgia, which is really primarily clay, it's slow draining and it's heavy, and it would take a lot of soil amendments. And then maintaining those beds from year to year is extra labor. And once the garden is established and the beds are in place, I really don't want to come back in and till each year, because I think that I subscribe to the no-till approach. So by designing raised beds, I can initially start with the perfect soil. I have a recipe that I love to use, and then just top dress that with a little bit of compost and enjoy just a more controlled growing environment. And I love the aesthetics of a raised bed garden environment too, and so I'm partial to that. Plus, they're 18 inches tall, so I can sit on the edge comfortably and do my weeding, and I like that too.
Well, with the raised bed, people say, well, what's the best type of gardening? And I'll ask them, well, what do you want to do? Well, number one, a raised bed is going and tilling the soil up, assuming you have good soil and the soil tests come back, you don't have toxicities. It is the most affordable way, but it's an investment for the raised bed, and in the long run, it pays off for the return on investment that you've put into it. Yeah, you put money up front, but what you get out of it, because you're putting perfect or near perfect soil compost in there, is well worth the investment.
That's such a great point. I definitely have a significant investment on the front end of these raised beds, but I haven't put a penny into them since then to maintain their shape and their integrity, and the payoff I've already had the payoff on it, but I get really consistent results. And also, Joey, time is money, and the more time you have to spend maintaining an in-ground bed and reshaping it and weeding it and bending over, I mean, there's a lot to be said for that. And these raised beds are so much more low maintenance than anything that I would have in-ground. And I'm not opposed to in-ground gardening. I love mounded raised beds in-ground. But for me, the best overall situation was raised beds. And raised beds are really popular, and it gives people an opportunity to grow in an environment where they may not otherwise be able to do so because their soil is so hard to work in. And so the raised beds just make that easier. And last point on it is for somebody that has maybe some physical limitations, a raised bed allows them to get that bed up higher to where they can more easily get into it and work the garden better.
Right, and you've been on this program, and I agree with you. There is no wrong answer or right answer to how should I garden. It's specifically targeted to your needs and your situation. That's what you need to go with. Just because Joe said something or we said another thing doesn't mean that's the right answer for your particular backyard.
Right. Exactly.
Especially if you're doing it year after year. Now, most people, especially in the Midwest, it's Labor Day weekend, it's the unofficial end of summer type mentality. They're starting to wind down their gardens. Maybe they don't want to grow fall crops. And as they're when they're putting into their beds what they think about, what is better in your opinion, aged cow manure, aged horse manure, or some sort of plant-derived compost?
First choice would be plant-derived compost, and I would not be opposed to some sort of aged manure, and I would definitely opt for cow manure over horse manure because horse manure can have some really nefarious ingredients in it, such as persistent herbicides. Throughout the country, it's pretty common that farmers that manage their fields for the hay that they harvest, they apply a broadleaf herbicide that does not break down for several years. And gardeners unknowingly can take that horse manure because the herbicide is still intact, and they can put that composted horse manure in their garden, and next thing you know, they've ruined their soil with this pesticide or herbicide that doesn't break down. So you have to be careful with that, and cow manure is unlikely to have that herbicide in it. But if you really want to play it safe, composted organic material is going to have everything you need for your garden soil, and there's no risk of those other things.
Now, as we clean the garden up, Holly and I will do this later on where we bring a lot of material, organic material in from fall to get ready for winter. What are some of the biggest mistakes that gardeners make that we should not be doing when cleaning the garden up?
We shouldn't be too tidy. A lot of us really want to have a very clean slate when we start the next garden. But by removing everything, and that is all the plant debris that's in the garden, we're removing a lot of beneficial insects that are overwintering. Yes, there are some pests that may overwinter in that area as well, but we're absolutely, when we remove everything, we're removing some very important beneficial insects that we need to appear next fall, early in the season. And so by removing maybe just the obvious things that have damage or pest diseases or something like that, or diseases or pest damage, remove those. But be okay with the fact that you leave some organic material behind, because when you do, you're also leaving behind some overwintering beneficials, which you need to be there early next spring.
Right, and when you say remove some of the, I think powdery mildew plants. I would get those out and put in the trash.
Right.
But other things, just dead plant debris. Yeah, there's a lot of beneficial insects that you don't know that are there that make a tremendous difference on the positive for your garden. That whenever and you've seen it just like we have, they rake it out, clean it up, just so it looks like they're ready to lay carpet down because it's so pristine, and it really is hurting them in the long run.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
Now, do you cover, in the winter, do you recommend putting some type of organic material over top of the soil to keep the soil from being exposed all winter long if we're not growing?
Absolutely. You want to protect that surface with organic material that will eventually break down and help improve the soil and add to it, but you don't want to leave it exposed, because when you leave it exposed, you're doing a lot of things to that soil that doesn't prepare it for next spring, and you're also subjecting it to runoff or compaction, and just you don't want to do that. So put a layer of mulch on. If nothing else, put a layer of mulch on, or shredded leaves is my favorite thing So there's lots of options, but the one thing you don't want to do is just leave it completely bare.
Yeah, the neighbors at the large garden, I think they all realize that either we're crazy or we must know something, because we spend days and hours bringing leaves in. Last year we put 2,000 pounds of leaves on the garden, untreated leaves, and by by June, Holly, we didn't even know we did a thing because it all had broke down and fed the soil.
Perfect.
Now, if someone wants to expand their garden or have recently bought a house, wants to get ready for their spring garden, what can they do right now, whether it's raised beds or in the ground, to prepare for that?
I think the first thing is to prepare. Make your plans. Think about what do you want to grow, how big is that space, where are you going to get the material for that, do you need to add soil? If so, where are you going to get it? Are you going to buy seedlings? Are you going to start seeds? Where are you going to get your seeds? If you're going to start them from seeds, what material do you need to buy or borrow or find to help you get going? Because what happens is we get closer to growing season, which seems months away now. As we get closer to it, it starts to come at us really fast, like a fast-moving freight train, and we're not ready. And so the best thing that we can do to be ready is to do that planning now and take advantage of this downtime and figure out all our sources and all our needs and the garden design and, like I said, the size of the beds and what we're going to need, and put pen to paper and plan it out now so that doesn't sneak up on you. Next thing you know, you're going to miss that window of opportunity next early winter.
And based on what you're wanting to do, it's the fall time. What's garden centers wanting to do? They're wanting to get rid of their materials and items, so they're bargain basement pricing that you can stock up now and get 10 times what you would normally buy for, 10 times saving compared to whatever it was would be in the spring.
Great. Yeah, I'm a big fan of getting good deals, and that's a great point that you make there, Joey. They want to clear out that shelf space and make room for their seasonal items, and they're willing to practically give away that stuff that you can easily use next season. Good point.
And if your husband or wife is anti-gardening, just explain how much money you're saving now by doing it rather than buying it and spending all that money in the spring.
There you go.
Joe, you've done 9 seasons of Growing a Greener World on PBS. People all over the world know who you are. It's syndicated in, 29 countries now? Something like that?
30-something. Yeah, 30-something.
And people think that, they turn in on the TV and they see pristine everything, that Joe Lampl never has a mistake. What are some mistakes that you face or problems or plants that you just are like, I cannot make this thing grow?
Challenges that I have, I embrace challenges. I look forward to them. It helps me become a better gardener, but every single year I have challenges, and it's always Mother Nature first and foremost. Every year is different, and so I'm always just trying to, move with the punches. But it's being proactive to try to anticipate what kind of conditions you're going to have so that when those things happen, the damage or the challenges are fewer. But, for example, to answer your question on the things that I just don't grow very well, I don't grow squash very well because of the heat and the humidity and the squash bugs and the squash vine borers. That they're pervasive in my garden down here, and I'm not around as much as I'd like to be to manage and observe and prevent those problems from occurring. And they take up a lot of space for me in those raised beds. So there are other things I'd prefer to grow, and so I typically don't grow squash, although I did it this year, thinking that I might have different results, and I didn't have different results. It was a disaster. I mean, I still got great fruit, but I had all the pests and issues that I always have. And so I tend to not grow the things that I don't have great success with, and that's one example. But bottom line is, I like to make mistakes, and I look at them as challenges and opportunities. And as long as I'm learning from them, and I don't purposely make those same mistakes again, then I'm happy with that, and I embrace everyone that comes my way.
And you're just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, so when you say down there, I want people to be aware of where you're located at. And maybe you might be in the same situation we are. We can't grow cauliflower or broccoli to save our lives, but we've got friends who are very prolific in it just a few miles away from where we're at.
Wow.
So it's very, very unique. With the raised bed that you have, and this is a general question, not necessarily designated to your particular garden, is it less likely you're going to deal with insects in a raised bed versus a ground garden, or are we going to deal with the same problem everywhere? It's just going to be easier to be reactive to it in a raised bed.
I think we're going to deal with the same problems because the insects don't care whether it's, in ground or raised bed. They're going to find it. They have lots of amazing ways to locate those favorite plants. And so I don't think the raised bed is going to cut down on whether or not they show up, but I do think it makes it easier to manage them once they get there, just because I think we have greater access and easier visibility because the plants are closer to our eye level, so we're able to see the diseases and pests are closer to our eye level, so we're going to be able to identify those issues. And so for that reason alone, I think the raised beds have an advantage.
And we want to point out that you are an organic gardener, and we had Lee Reich on last week, and he's an organic gardener. He's been featured on your program, and he said the same thing that you will probably say about avoiding toxicity products in the garden or around the garden because they can potentially stay in the soil and be detrimental later on down the road, just like you talked about the compost.
I just don't think you need to use them. I think if you let Mother Nature do what she does best and be patient, the problems are going to take care of themselves. Maybe you can intervene it from time to time and be a little proactive, but basically design the pest out of your garden. And you don't need to do that with any sort of chemicals. And the interesting thing is, even when we use, benign or organic options such as insecticidal soap, that's still non-selective, and it doesn't know the difference between a good pest or a good beneficial and a pest. And so we just really need to be more thoughtful about if and when we're going to use anything at all. But I'm a guy that does not use any synthetic chemicals whatsoever in my garden because they do stick around and they tend to be non-selective.
And I think the number one advice is know what the problem is. Don't think that you know. Actually, we've got the technology in which we're in our hands all the time. Identify what the problem is and then make an educated decision what is best to either resolve the issue or control the issue.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. Before you control or treat anything, you need to know what you're treating and the best method of control for that one thing that you're trying to treat. So, yes, please, if you didn't hear anything else I said today, that is a perfect thing to, take away from this conversation, is know your foe before you begin to treat it.
Fantastic. Now, how do we get a hold of you and find out more about you and all of your great information?
Well, joegardener.com is a great website that allows you to watch our videos and listen to the podcast. And if you wanted to contact me, there's a contact link right there on the homepage or any page on that website. And it's kind of a one-stop shop for whether you like to listen to podcasts or watch videos or read great show notes and blog posts. JoeGardener.com is where I would have you go. And if you wanted to learn more about our television show, GrowingAGreenerWorld.com is its own website, and you can watch all the past episodes and related information there.
Well, Joe, we greatly appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to join Holly and myself and all of our listeners and enlightening us and educating us on some garden techniques that will help us better in our backyards.
It's my pleasure, Joey and Holly. Thanks for having me. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Absolutely. And when we come back, your garden questions and our garden answers right after this.
Have a gardening question? You can call into the ivorganic.com hotline at 414-444-5250 right now.
Beans and Barley Market and Cafe, a neighborhood specialty grocery store for the east side and greater Milwaukee area, where you can find all you need, from fresh produce to bakery to organic frozen dinners, from wine to fresh squeezed carrot juice, a health food store with hundreds of products, vitamins, supplements, bath and body items, magazines, cards, books, and a knowledgeable staff. Catering available, open daily at 8 a.m. The restaurant serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week with a menu of good, healthy, homemade food, including vegetarian and non-vegetarian specialties. 1901 East North Avenue, Milwaukee, 414-278-7878, and online at beansandbarley.com.
Garden seeds do not have to cost a fortune, just 99 cents at migardener.com. Now with over 450 varieties of non-GMO, heirloom, and organic flower, vegetable, and herb seeds available year-round. Pay less and get more seeds. Shipping as low as $2.50. That just makes sense. Go to migardener.com for seeds and garden needs, tools, and special blend fertilizers. migardener.com. It's that simple. Family owned and operated.
Haas Tools wants to help you grow your own food. From seed starting supplies, hand tools, drip irrigation, Harvesting equipment and a complete line of all-natural pest control solutions, they've got you covered. Keep your garden weed-free with their time-tested, American-made wheel hose that are built to last a lifetime. And their precision garden seeders have proven design for planting a wide variety of seeds. Haas Tools has what you need to get the most out of your growing space, large or small. Free shipping and outstanding customer service. Shop online or request a free catalog at HaasTools.com.
Rebel Green, responsibly made natural products that are good for you and the environment. Made in the USA, plant-based, vegan, and always toxic-free. Find out more at rebelgreen.com. Use coupon code WIVEG15 to save 15% off your next purchase at rebelgreen.com/shop. Root Assassin, a garden tool that does all the root functions with its advanced shovel that has serrated edges on both sides. Find out more information at rootassassinshovel.com.
Blue Mel's Garden and Landscape Center offers an awesome selection of high-quality garden and landscape products. We have just the plants you're looking for: annuals, perennials, veggies, herbs, and more. Plus, you can always count on us to answer all of your questions and offer expert advice. Blue Mel's also carries the largest selection of bulk landscape materials in the area. Enjoy a beverage from our coffee shop while your kids run around in our huge playground. Join our growing list of highly satisfied customers. Visit the garden center that offers everything you're looking for. Visit Blue Mel's today.
Blue Mel's, 4930 West Loomis Road, 414-282-4220. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener is brought to you by the following: Handy Safety Knife, BioSafe, Tall Earth, Chapin International, The Plant Booster, Ivy Organics, Woodman's Market, Blue Mel's Landscape and Garden Center. Find all sponsors at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com and thank them for their support.
Now back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden Radio Show with your hosts, Joey and Holly Baird.
Ivy Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard naturally protects plants against damaging sunburn, insects, and rodents, protects newly installed plants and trees, shields prune and damaged surfaces for use on your roses, fruit, and nut trees, ornamental trees, and shrubs. This product is non-toxic, environmentally safe, and organic. You can visit ivorganics.com. You can call us right now with your question or comment at 414-444-5250 on the ivorganic.com hotline.
Well, we did have a number of questions come in. You can certainly email us at twvgshow@gmail.com. You can dump it on Twitter at twvgshow. You can also hashtag it at hashtag twvg. Let's see here. Kathy emailed us and said, do you have any advice, or she actually came through our Facebook page, the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener, on that. Do you have any advice on purchasing a pressure canner or pressure cooker? I have never used one before, but I have water bath can for years. So first of all, there's a difference between pressure cooker and pressure canner, correct?
Right. I think she probably meant pressure canner.
Okay.
Because if she's talking about water bath canning, she's talking about taking the next step to pressure canning. I would just say to go to your best search engine, search how to shop for a pressure canner. I found some really great links I provided for her. You definitely want to think about the size, how much you're canning, how much you want to invest, all of that.
Okay. Yeah, the investment, you can do very small, or you can do several $100 on the size of the canner and what you're intending to do with that. Let's go to the Ivy Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard hotline. And caller, you were on the air.
Thank you for taking my call. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Holly.
Good morning,
Milwaukee. Good morning, man, Mr. Debo. Tyrone W. speaking. Just a couple of things real quick. I would like for you to expound on the potato. Well, you were speaking about the refrigerators and freezers there. And I know those trays at the bottom. For years I have put my onions and my potatoes in the refrigerator, for at least until they were ready to use. I know at some time over the years, they're mainly my mom, but not me, because I mash potatoes, French fries, scallop, all of it, so I cook mine usually right away. But sometimes she would leave hers in there till they would wrinkle some. Now, I would think maybe that's what you were talking about. But if you could expound, why would you say never refrigerate potatoes, that, and then I'll listen to you over the air, but then, because I would put my cucumbers, my onions, even sometimes some of my fruit and stuff, in the refrigerator, like my nectarines, and occasionally maybe an apple or something like that. But the nectarines, the plums, they highlight, they give a wonderful smell to the room. The apples, the different variety of apples like the McIntosh and the Granny Smiths. So I like to put those in bowls sometimes, but sometimes to keep the flies and stuff off of them, I will refrigerate them, just to keep some of the insects from coming indoors, getting on them, even though all you have to do is just wash those off,
Sure.
But, and I'll hang up and listen to you over the air. So wonderful day and great weekend then.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
So
Okay,
about
so the
the
reason
potatoes,
you don't want to store the potatoes in the fridge, potatoes are starch. They're considered a starch or a carb. But because they are very high in starch, what happens when you put it in the fridge is the molecular contents change and the sugar increases. So the sugars in that potato change, but it increases. So now you are taking a starchy food and creating more starch, essentially. And then when you cook them, it might take them longer to cook, different ways of cooking. So that's why you don't want to store them in the fridge.
Okay, so, but when we do store...
But you can store apples and stuff in the fridge.
Right, but when we store any of that, like we talked about earlier, we want to store it with the dirt on to actually put a barrier or a safety around it or protection, whether we're storing in a rack or in the bottom of the cabinet or whatever the case is.
Right.
But again, we don't store them in the fridge because of the high, or it creates what now?
It increases the sugar levels.
Okay, okay. So that being said, Charlie from the New York area. He is a avid listener to the program as well as viewer on our YouTube channel, the in-studio video and audio of the show. He says, congrats on 60 shows and 60 more, referencing last week. Was our 60th, a couple of weeks ago, was our 60th program that we've done here on the radio show. So we thank you for that, and we thank you for listening. Like I said, he's in the New York area. We have listeners all over the country, Canada, and throughout the world as I look at the data that comes in on where our show gets downloaded at. It's really quite unique and amazing to me. Rose writes in from southeast Louisiana and says hello. So, again, all over the place. All right, another canning question here. I recently did some water bath canning, and when I pulled the jars out of the water bath canner, I noticed that several of them were pinched or puckered up in the center like a small V. What is going on, and what did I do wrong? Well, that is an indication whenever you remove the jar from the canner and you see it's bent up like you would have taken the lid and just try to press your fingers on each side and then compress it and make it like V up, I guess is the best term. It's because your rings are on too tight. If you tighten your rings too tight, the pressure inside of the jar cannot release. When in the water bath canner, the science that goes on in the water bath canner, as the temperature rises, there is a certain amount of air, which is called the headspace on these jars. When you put the material in the jar, it says X amount of headspace is needed. Well, if your jar lid is tightened down too tight during the canning process, and this can happen in pressure canning as well, the air cannot escape to create the vacuum that is needed to seal the jar properly. So that's what occurs. The air escapes out of the jar, and then when you remove it from the item in which the water bath canner, the pressure canner, you hear that pop that you're associating with the jar being sealed. If it's too tight, the jar will not seal because there's still pressure that has built up inside of that jar that cannot release because you've cranked the jar too tight. So a general rule of thumb, whenever we are canning items, put the lid on and put the ring on finger tight. We're not barreling it down extremely tight, just finger tight, and then it will can properly. So that takes us to the point of proper and safe canning practices. Always read the Ball Blue book, the Better Homes and Garden book, those type of instructional manuals that have the instructions and the recipes in it, because they go through what you have to do in order to do it safely. And just because it puckered up doesn't mean you can slap another lid on, crank the ring on, and you're done. It doesn't work that way. You've got to follow the directions and do it correctly and do it safely so it's safe to eat. Well, that will do it for us today. We appreciate you tuning into the program and taking a little time out of your day to join us. Programming note, join us next week when we're going to talk about things that you can grow indoors over the winter months. We'll talk about what you can grow, how to grow it, and where to grow it to get the most success, as well as planting bulbs outside, that fall job that we need to do in order to have pretty flowers in the spring. And our guest, she's an author and will be with us, Teresa O'Connor. miss any portion of this program or want to revisit in its entirety, you can certainly do that by going to the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com, clicking on the radio tab at the top of the page, and scrolling through to find the particular show that you want to revisit, or this one. You can find full-length in-studio video as well as podcast of all programs that we've done. Want an individual interview or a specific segment? Find that under the highlight tab on the right-hand side of the main page. Until next week, for Holly Baird, I'm Joy Baird, and we will see you in the garden.
You've been listening to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show. Tell a friend and join Joey and Holly again next week so we can all grow together. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show is a production of the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com in association with WI Garden Media, broadcast live from the WNOV 860 AM and the W293CX 106.5 FM, Courier Communication Studios in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.